For more, let's bring in former Michigan gubernatorial candidate and host of the Tudor Dixon podcast, Tudor Dixon. Great to see you as always, Tudor. The Biden campaign is upset and has been that working Americans have memories of Donald Trump's economy that are very fond. And so Joe Biden's lost his memory, and all they are hoping is that the American people lose their memory as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't want people to remember what it was like with Donald Trump at the helm because, listen, in the state of Michigan, in the state of Wisconsin, things were going well. Manufacturing was coming back. I'm a manufacturer. I understand this. He was putting tariffs in place. He was putting laws in place. He was making sure that people in Michigan and Wisconsin had jobs. He was helping people here, but they were also financially secure. They felt like things were going well. They weren't threatened by all of these environmental mandates. They weren't threatened by EVs. They weren't threatened by their energy being taken away. And now they know who Joe Biden is, and they see what he's doing every day. And I can't tell you enough. We are being too kind. We are being too nice about who Joe Biden is. We've got to be harsh about who this man is and how incompetent he is at this point. I see him giving interviews with his mouth hanging open, and nobody's saying this is abnormal behavior. This is not okay. But it's not okay. He's not capable of being president. He has no business running right now, and his vice president, she shouldn't be running either. The Democrats have lost their way.
Tudor, I couldn't agree with you more on your assessment of the Trump economy and how we view Joe Biden right now, yet the polls are tied, right? It makes no sense that in Wisconsin and Michigan, I'm from Wisconsin, that these two should be so close. So as you're traveling the state of Michigan, do you think the polls are wrong? Are the voters actually in a different place than the polls are telling us right now?
In the state of Michigan, I think absolutely. Right now, I know that they are trying hard to keep Joe Biden. As you just saw, they're trying hard to keep reporters away from Joe Biden so he can't actually speak. So you have these staunch Democrats who are going, oh, look, he spoke and he did well. That's what I'm saying about not being harsh enough on this man. If he's able to keep standing, we're like, oh, that's fantastic. Look, he actually did a good job. But no, I don't think the voters are there. I think the voters are being shy right now. I think this is the same thing we saw in 2016, where people are afraid to come out and say that they are for Donald Trump because look at what's happening on college campuses. Look what's happening on The View. If that's what's happening on The View and they're so willing to say that he should be put in jail and any supporter is a complete idiot, that Clay Travis isn't even intelligent enough to speak on radio, people are not going to say how they're voting.
Before we move on, Biden won Wisconsin by fewer than 21,000 votes. Sean knows this. But in the primary, uninstructed votes, 48,373. That's what Joe Biden's worried about as much as he's worried about Donald Trump, is the people who are in his party and absolutely loathe him. Moving on to this, voters trust President Trump on the economy more than stumbling, bumbling Biden. But Biden's message is, you can't trust the voters.
When you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along.
You know what's not wrong? The inflation rate. The inflation rate right now is higher than at any point during President Trump's time in office. Full stop. And Joe Biden on inflation, his annual inflation is 5.7%. The only two modern presidents that beat him on that are Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, Tudor.
Look, they think that the American people are stupid. They think that him coming back and saying, after a pandemic, the jobs came back and that's all because of me, that's going to work to turn the people around. But let's pick apart that interview for just a second. Look at her demeanor, just the way she's talking to him. It's like your grandfather in a nursing home. He is getting treated with kid gloves. She's quietly whispering. Have you ever heard someone interview Donald Trump that way? Quietly whispering, letting them answer, being very careful with them? No. And And guess what? The American people are picking up on this. They know that he can talk about this stuff. They know that he's lying. He obviously has some information left in his head, and he's telling people, oh, look at this poll. The American people think they're fine in their house. They think the nation's a mess. Well, guess what, buddy? You're the head of the nation, and so that's why you will not be reelected in 2024.
Tudor Dixon, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being with us on The Bottom Line. We appreciate it.